Have you noticed this? The harder you explain yourself, the less people listen. The more you try to be liked, the less they respect you. You've felt it before, justifying your choices, defending your worth, and still, they brushed you aside like you didn't matter. Society says respect is earned by kindness, by openness, by showing your heart. But look around. Is that really what you see in the real world? The ones who never ask for respect seem to receive it. The ones who don't explain themselves are listened to. The ones who are silent seem more powerful than the ones who speak the most. That's the contradiction no one tells you. The more you chase respect, the more it escapes you. And the more you withdraw from needing it, the more it bends toward you. Here is the dark truth. Respect does not come from asking, proving, or showing. Respect comes from silence, from presence, from the man who doesn't need to be heard, yet still cannot be ignored. Stay with me until the end, because once you see this truth, you'll never beg for respect again. You'll demand it without saying a word. Think about how many times you've done this without even noticing. You said sorry for something that didn't need an apology. You explained yourself twice, 3 times, hoping someone would finally get your point. You laughed at a joke you didn't find funny just so you wouldn't feel left out. Every man has done this, and every man regrets it after, because deep down, you know what's happening. You're begging for respect. You're saying, please accept me, please see me, please give me worth. But here's the brutal reality. Every time you do this, you make yourself smaller, and the world sees it. People don't respect the man who begs. They tolerate him, at best. Think of it like this. The moment you seek respect, you've already lost it. Respect isn't something you ask for. It isn't something you prove through endless explanations. Respect is recognized, not requested. That's why Machiavelli said, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." Because respect doesn't come from kindness. It comes from strength, from presence, from mystery. The more you try to convince people to respect you, the less they will. But the less you care, the less you chase it, the more it clings to you. So let me ask you this. How much of your life has been wasted explaining yourself to people who never cared in the first place? Think about how many times you've done this without even realizing it. You're in a group and someone misunderstands you. Instead of letting it go, you explain yourself again and again. Each time, you feel smaller. Each time, their eyes glaze over more. You can almost hear it in their silence. Why is he trying so hard? You know that feeling in your chest afterwards. The frustration, the shame, the self-disgust. It's not just because they ignored you. It's because a part of you knows you begged for their respect and they didn't give it. Here's the cruel truth. The moment you ask for respect, you lose it. The moment you try to prove your worth, it disappears. People don't admire the man who begs. They endure him. They look past him. They use him. That's why Machiavelli's words still cut like a knife. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Because respect isn't born from approval, it's born from presence. And here's the paradox. The less you chase respect, the more it comes. The more silent you are, the louder your presence feels. The less you explain, the more they wonder. Now let's talk about the thing most men fear the most. Silence. Most people can't handle it. They panic when there's nothing to say. They start filling the air with words, jokes, explanations, anything, just to escape the weight of it. But here's the secret. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is power. Think about it. In every room, who do people notice? The one who talks the loudest, or the one who speaks the least? Yet every word lands like a stone. You've seen it. The man who says almost nothing, yet somehow the whole room leans in when he finally does speak. It makes them uncertain. When you don't explain yourself, they wonder. When you don't rush to fill the space, they project their own thoughts, their own fears onto you. You become unreadable. And nothing is more intimidating than the man who cannot be read. Here's the part most men miss. Respect doesn't rise from words. It rises from restraint. Anyone can talk. Few can hold silence. Few can stand in the discomfort of not being understood and still refuse to beg for it. When was the last time you let silence work for you? When was the last time you sat in a room, said nothing, and let people wonder who you are instead of telling them? Because here's the truth. Words are cheap. Silence makes them pay attention. Here's something you already know, even if you've never put it into words. Silence is heavy. It makes people uncomfortable. And the weaker a man is inside, the less he can stand it. Think about the guy who always needs to talk. He can't sit in a quiet moment without cracking a joke, telling a story, or trying to fill the air with noise. Why? Because silence exposes him. In the silence, his insecurities rise to the surface. He starts to wonder, do they respect me? Do they even notice me? Am I invisible? And instead of holding that weight, he tries to cover it with words. Here's the dark truth. Every extra word bleeds out his power. The more he talks, the more he reveals. The more he explains, the more he shows how badly he needs approval. His mouth becomes the mirror of his weakness. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." For weak men, their unconscious craving for validation controls them. They don't choose their words. Their fear speaks through them. And you've felt this yourself. The silence after someone ignores your message. The silence in a room where no one responds. That tight feeling in your chest, pushing you to explain, to apologize, to say something just so you don't feel invisible. But here's the paradox. Every time you break that silence, you confirm the very thing you fear, that you weren't worth listening to in the first place. So let me ask you this. When you're faced with silence, do you own it? Or does it own you? Most men don't realize it, but their mouth is the first thing that betrays them. Every explanation, every defense, every "just hear me out" chips away at the respect they hope to earn. Words are fragile. Presence is heavy. And the man who leans too much on words is already losing, long before anyone even notices. Think about the last argument you had. Maybe it was at work, maybe with a friend, maybe with someone you love. You started talking to clarify, to defend, to make them understand. And what happened? Did they see your point? Did they nod and respect you more? Or did they roll their eyes, interrupt, or forget everything you said the second you stopped speaking? That's the trap. Every extra word you use leaks power. Even outside arguments, it's the same pattern. You over-explain in emails. You justify decisions in meetings. You try to show your worth in every conversation. And all that effort, it rarely lands. People don't respect the man who argues. They respect the man whose presence is undeniable, who doesn't need to explain himself to be acknowledged. Here's the paradox. The more you defend, the more you reveal your weakness. The more you try to make them see your value, the more you confirm that you're desperate for it. Silence, restraint, patience. These are the true weapons. They cost nothing, but they make people pay attention. So ask yourself, in the last week, how many times did your own words betray you? How often did your mouth try to buy respect, only to spend it instead? The moment you recognize this, the first step toward untouchable presence begins. Here's the paradox. The more you defend, the more you reveal your weakness. The more you try to make them see your value, the more you confirm that you're desperate for it. Silence, restraint, patience. These are the true weapons. They cost nothing, but they make people pay attention. So ask yourself, in the last week, how many times did your own words betray you? How often did your mouth try to buy respect, only to spend it instead? The moment you recognize this, the first step toward untouchable presence begins. There is a quiet power in waiting. The man who speaks first may seem confident, but the man who speaks last always carries weight. Why? Because when others fill the air with noise, explanations, and arguments, they reveal themselves. They show their fears, their desires, their weaknesses, and the man who waits, he watches. He absorbs it all, without a word, without panic, without trying to control. Think about it in everyday life. In a meeting, The first person to speak often sets the tone, but also exposes their agenda. The last person to speak can choose words carefully, strike with precision, and leave a lasting impact. In arguments, it's the same. Those who interrupt, who defend, who shout first, often reveal more than they intend. The man who waits becomes untouchable because his timing is deliberate and his silence unnerves others. Waiting is not passivity. It is strength disguised as calm. It's the ability to let others exhaust themselves while you preserve your energy. It's patience, restraint, and confidence wrapped in one. People respect the one who does not rush, who does not beg for attention, who does not need to prove anything. Here's a truth that will hit hard. The one who speaks last is rarely ignored. People lean in. They listen. They feel the weight of his presence because it is deliberate, unshakable, and controlled. He does not need to demand respect. They feel it. They respond to it, whether they know it or not. Ask yourself this. How often do you speak first out of fear, out of the need to be noticed? What would change if you held your silence until it mattered most? Respect is rarely about what you say. It's about how you carry yourself. Most men think they earn respect by performing, by proving, by explaining, by convincing. But presence is different. Presence doesn't need justification. Presence doesn't need applause. Presence simply is, and it leaves a mark without effort. Think about people you've admired in life or history. It wasn't always their words that drew you. It was their calm, their confidence, the quiet weight they carried into a room. Their presence made you notice. Their silence demanded attention. They didn't need to justify their actions. They didn't need to explain their worth, and that's why people respected them. Ask yourself this. In your own life, are you performing to be seen, or are you cultivating presence that cannot be ignored? The answer will tell you how far you've let words and weakness control your life. Here's a truth most men never want to face. The more you need someone's respect, the less you'll ever have it. Respect is not given to the man who chases. It's given to the man who stands still, who does not beg, who does not bend. And that comes from one word: detachment. Detachment doesn't mean coldness. It doesn't mean you don't care about people. It means you don't cling to their approval. You don't depend on their recognition to confirm your worth. And when you don't need, something strange happens. People start to value you more. Think about relationships. The man who begs, who calls too much, who explains his feelings endlessly, he loses power. The one who is calm, who doesn't overreact, who doesn't chase, that's the one who earns respect. Why? Because people can sense when you need them more than they need you, and the one who needs less always has more power. It's the same at work, in friendships, in every interaction. The moment you detach from the need for validation, you become untouchable. You're no longer controlled by what others think or say, and people respect what they cannot control. So here's the challenge. Ask yourself, where in your life are you chasing? Where are you secretly begging for respect, for attention, for approval? And what would happen if you let go? If you stood in silence without bending, without needing? The answer is simple. Respect would come to you, not because you demanded it with words, but because your detachment makes you undeniable. Silence is not just absence, it's a mirror. And when you hold it in front of people, they can't help but reveal who they really are. Think about it. When you stay silent in an argument, what happens? The other person grows louder, more desperate, more emotional. They reveal their anger, their fear, their insecurity. Your silence doesn't weaken you, it exposes them. The man who holds silence forces others to face themselves. This is why insecure people hate silence. They rush to fill it, to control it, to break it, because silence reflects their own weakness back at them. And this is why strong people respect it. They see silence not as emptiness, but as discipline, as restraint, as strength. Imagine you're in a conversation and someone accuses you of something untrue. Most men rush to defend themselves, to argue, to prove they're right. But the man who stays calm, who doesn't overreact, who lets silence hang in the air, that man unsettles everyone. Because in that moment, the accuser is forced to stand in the mirror of their own words. Silence has already judged them, without you saying a thing. That's the hidden weapon. Silence doesn't just protect you, it unmasks others. It reveals the loud, the weak, the insecure, while you remain untouched. So here's the question. When the world presses you, when people throw words at you, can you hold the silence long enough to let them reveal themselves? Or do you shatter it and reveal yourself instead? There comes a moment in every man's life when he has to decide, will I beg to be seen, or will I make my presence undeniable? Most men waste their lives trying to convince others of their worth. They argue, they defend, they explain. They pour out words like coins, hoping someone will value them. But words are cheap. Words can be twisted, ignored, forgotten. Silence, on the other hand, silence lingers. It sticks. It burns into memory. When you walk into a room and say nothing, people feel it. When you are insulted and do not react, people respect it, even if they won't admit it. When you are calm while others lose control, they realize you cannot be touched. That is the secret of silence. It builds a presence that cannot be denied, a respect that cannot be begged for. The man who demands respect in silence is untouchable. He is like a mountain, immovable, unshaken. People may shout at him, test him, even try to humiliate him, but in the end, his silence is louder than their noise. The climax of this lesson is simple but brutal. If you beg for respect, you will never have it. If you demand it through silence, you will never lose it. So the question is not whether people will respect you. The real question is, are you strong enough to stop speaking and let silence speak for you? Respect is never given to those who chase it. It is drawn, quietly, toward those who stand firm in themselves. That is the paradox. When you stop begging, you start receiving. When you stop shouting, people finally start to listen. Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "Silence is worse. All truths that are kept silent become poisonous." But here is the hidden twist. Silence is only poison when it comes from fear. When it comes from strength, silence is not poison. It is power. It is the invisible hand that moves people without a single word. So tonight, as you step back into your world, remember this. You don't need to prove yourself. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to beg for respect. If you hold your silence, if you master it, the world will have no choice but to see you. Respect demanded in silence is respect that cannot be taken away. Now the choice is yours. Will you keep chasing noise, or will you let silence crown you? If this message spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Subscribe if you want more truths that cut this deep. And when you're ready, watch the next video, because the journey into power has only just begun.